day 22 of Natural Beauty Summit's Detox Your Beauty Regimen series. I'm Salome Sallehy, founder and president at Sugar Wax, a clean beauty company. And today is the last interview in the series. Now I say that with excitement because wait till you hear what we have coming. And a little sadness because I have learned so much in these interviews and it's almost over. Before I introduce today's guest expert, I just want to give you a little overview of what we have in the pipeline at Natural Beauty Summit. In a couple of weeks, we'll be revealing the new website, which you will obviously get updates for. And for the remainder of 2020, we have 2 events planned. One is deeply focused on feminine health, and the second one is all about hair, like big hair, hair loss, body hair, all things hair. And obviously, I'm going to be hosting that one as well. The formats of these next summits will be different, and we'll keep you all posted on details. Hair is just what brings our next guest to the Natural Beauty Summit. Now, they say sometimes you have to save the best for last, and Dr. Martey-Ochola does not fall short of that designation. Aside from the incredible company called Nuele that she has built, she will also be shedding light on a very important and highly underrated topic of how we detox through the scalp. Now, if you think about it, it makes sense that the body's critical detox zone happens to lay around the body's most important organ, the brain, which controls all of its other functions. Now, just be ready to be blown away. Without further ado, I give you Dr. Martey-Ochola. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Natural Beauty Summit. I have the great pleasure of interviewing Dr. Martey-Ochola, who is the chief scientist and co-founder at Nuele Hair. We're going to talk about those products, and you might notice that I look a little different, and I am different. I'm wearing my curls today. This is my hair in its natural state. And I really wanted to try out some of Dr. Martey-Ochola's recommendations and do some work on my scalp, which you'll be hearing more about. So let's get right to our interview. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Salome. It's such a pleasure catching up with you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, as am I. In this series, we have talked a lot about detoxing from our, digestive gut health all the way to our lymph systems, but we haven't talked at all about the scalp, which is a critical detox zone. Can you talk a little bit about that and how the scalp is really different from the skin for our audience?
Okay. Thanks. I think you asked a really great question, regarding scalp health and scalp morphology, if you want to call it that, relative to our regular skin, whether it's on our face or our arms or whatever the case may be. At a very fundamental level, our scalp skin is very similar to the rest of our skin, right, from the standpoint of the different layers that exist, our epidermis and so on. Where we start to see a difference is in the sebaceous glands, so our sweat glands. We have, I believe, the highest concentration of sweat glands in our scalp skin as compared to the rest of our body. And we'll talk a little bit about that. The other thing that's quite different is the concentration of lipids, or if you might want to call them fat cells, within our skin layer. And this is really helpful because a lot of that oil or fat or grease, I know those are not exciting words to hear all the time, but there's a benefit to them. And so our skin tends to have a much higher concentration of these types of cells. Now, the other thing about our skin, especially in the scalp, is that there's a very high, there are a lot of capillaries in there. So like, for example, if you bump your head or something, it seems like so much blood is coming out. And that's because of the higher really concentration of capillaries under like within our scalp relative to example under our arm skin. Now, why that is important is that the scalp plays a big role in detoxification. Um, a lot of the especially fat soluble toxins can end up accumulating in those fat cells that are on our scalp. And what happens then is that when we sweat and so on, all of that fat or toxins that might be on the fat, in the fat, dissolved in the fat, will come through our hair follicle shaft onto our hair, okay, and then clear. So we have a lot of sebaceous glands to help, in a sense, with producing sebum, which is that waxy, oily substance that covers our hair, but also it actually helps in removing toxins. So when we think about the difference of our scalp skin compared to the rest of our skin, not only does it provide a really nice barrier for entry into our cranial regions, but it also plays an important role in detoxification, just like our lymph nodes and things such as that. I would say the last thing is that it's quite thick. So other than the soles of our feet, the scalp is the next thickest part of skin.
Oh, wow.
So
I
yeah,
didn't know.
other than the soles of our feet. And the reason for that really is that we actually, just like within our gut, we see a regeneration, like new cells constantly being produced. Our scalp also does the same thing. Now, the thickness of that scalp skin, if you want to call it that, varies, of course, depending on how much we engage with our scalp. So if we brush our scalp a lot, for example, then we're continuously removing that top layer of, let's say, dead skin or exfoliating, then you start to produce more. And if you do it too much, you actually end up getting a thicker scalp skin. So just, it's just something to put out there. Like, you definitely want to exfoliate the scalp, but if you overdo it, your scalp thickness is going to actually increase quite tremendously. So those would be the big differences, really, between our scalp and regular skin.
And then I think you mentioned bioaccumulation. Can you talk a little bit about, well, I mean, I guess it leads right into my next question as well, which is about the toxins. Now, we all know like the top 10 or 12 or there are substances that are actually now banned in California and Europe and various states to some degree anyway. And we all know about these like toxic substances that have made their way into our personal care products, particularly since the Industrial Revolution. Can you, I guess sometimes we take for granted, like we all know that these are bad, but why are they bad? Can you talk about like the top 5 that we tend to find in like hair products and why they're bad for us?
Okay. So a couple of things. I mean, you talked about bioaccumulation, and what I would, or at least mentioned about that. What I would say is that because we tend to have a pretty high concentration of oils and fats in our scalp, that then also becomes a great repository for compounds, right? Whether they come from natural products or synthetic products, for compounds that dissolve in a fat or in a lipid layer to accumulate in that particular location. So, when I think about the top 5, I keep thinking, what are those substances that could reside for an extended period of time in this thick layer that's on our head? I would say compounds like quaternium-15, compounds that would produce formaldehyde as a byproduct, are very, very problematic. So anything that's a formaldehyde releasing product, and quat 15 is one that you'll see on ingredient bottles. It is a preservative, a very good preservative, but with that, it has a lot of issues. You know, overexposure can cause irritation to the skin. It is a teratogen. It's been linked to cancer. And I believe actually in California, you mentioned earlier, California is one of the states that has definitely, is very concerned about quad 15 and has banned it. In most of Europe, actually, you will not find quad 15 in ingredients. So, that would be a carcinogen. A teratogen interferes with fetal development. So, pregnant women should not, have that. And also a skin toxicant. In fact, hairstylists get a lot of skin irritation from anything that might have a quat in it. Parabens are also another one. Parabens are known, they're potent preservatives, okay, very good preservatives as well, but they're known endocrine disruptors. So anything that's going to interfere with our hormone system, with our endocrine system, poses significant problems, and they've been linked to cancer in women, breast cancer. I'm a woman of color, and women of color definitely has been linked with increase in fibroids and things such as that. And then we have phthalates, so things like dimethyl phthalate, dibutyl phthalate. So anything in the phthalate world is also an issue. Again, carcinogenic, teratogenic, causes significant, it can cause seborrheic dermatitis, so a lot of kind of irritation of the scalp, but also of the hands. That's another one that is very, very problematic for people who work in the hair care industry, because you'll find them in hairsprays and in shampoos and certain types of lotions and things such as that. I would say anything in the dye industry, so hair dyes, and I classified that because hair dyes carry multiple toxicants in them, and now we're beginning to see what are considered organic dyes, and more people are leaning that direction. But many of our dyes have things like acrylamides in them that are known to be carcinogenic, some of them that are known to be teratogenic, certainly environmental hazards and things such as that. Wow. The last, which I wouldn't necessarily call a toxin in the classical way, a large group, which I would just classify as alcohols. Certainly high concentrations of alcohol are toxic, but now when you look at the hair strand, I would classify alcohol as a toxin to hair strands from the perspective that alcohol does destroy the integrity of the hair strand. So even though it might not always be flagged as a toxicant in the classical way, like, we mentioned with the formaldehydes and things such as that, for the hair strand, it is a toxin because it disrupts your hair and actually really interferes with the integrity of how your hair functions, especially from a protective mechanism. So those would be my top 5 individual chemicals or categories of chemicals.
I don't know a ton about the hair industry, so I'm not going to, speculate. Mm-hmm. But from my understanding, clean has become really powerful in food. Mm-hmm. And it's now been a number of years in like cosmetics and skincare. Mm-hmm. And would you say that it's more recent, a concern in the hair care industry as well? It's becoming more so?
I mean, I think that it's always been there. However, it has not been, should we say, marketed aggressively on the hair side. There are many companies that have had conversations around clean, and that was actually driven by consumer feedback based on what was going on. Once alopecia, I think I'm almost going to say that when alopecia became a significant conversation factor, when more and more people started losing their hair and asking, why am I losing my hair? In communities, for example, in communities of color where people, perm their hair a lot and so on, and shifting from a curly look like you have today to a more straight look, we started seeing longitudinal data showing that there are certain types of compounds or products that seemed to be linked to hair loss. So I would say that really over the past 20 years, there's been conversation around clean, but possibly really in the past 5 to 6 years, has there been an intention around clean? Now, clean in the hair industry can vary.
Yeah, what does it mean? That was going to be my next
Yeah.
question.
So
What
what
does
it
it mean?
means in a very general level might be no alcohols, no parabens, no sulfates, so some of those things that we had mentioned, no cocoa DEA, and so on. So some of the classical toxicants. However, clean may not necessarily mean that we don't have anything that's not synthetic, right? Because when we think of the food industry, or maybe even in our cosmetic industry, clean tends to lean more towards, organics, naturals, the Ayurvedics, no pesticides, no herbicides. That's not necessarily what it means in the hair industry. In the hair industry, clean a lot of the time has leaned more towards not having alcohols, parabens, sulfates, the usual suspects. So, on the Nuele side, a lot of time we talk about what does clean mean versus what does ultra clean mean. So in the hair industry, I would say ultra clean is probably what matches clean and cosmetics, where ultra clean is talking non-GMO organics, is talking no synthetic chemicals, is talking putting in ingredients that are intentionally designed to provide health to the hair. Okay, so we look at intentional formulation when you're talking clean or ultra clean. Are you formulating with the intention of bringing hair health, or are you just formulating to provide a product that might not necessarily bring hair health, but does not cause disruption to you because it's a toxicant? I don't know
So
if that
would you
makes sense.
say, yeah, that totally makes sense. But from a consumer's perspective, would you say that it's not, there really isn't any standardized language around the use of toxic or irritants in hair products? So at this point in time, would you say that consumers kind of have to do their own homework and make those choices?
Great point. Consumers, sadly, in the hair industry, consumers have to be significant advocates for themselves. And I would say that really maybe over the past year or so, we're beginning to see nodes, we're beginning to see conversations around having a clean hair product standard. There's been a lot of, even the definition of organic varies when you're talking about hair care products, right? So sadly for consumers, it's been a challenge. And what we are seeing in the market across many different hair care brands is people beginning to define what clean means to them. And I think that's going to be very important for consumers, that they do go out and say, if a brand indicates that they're clean, it's okay to ask, what does clean mean to you? What does this ingredient list mean? And I'll give you an example, right? So if a brand considers itself clean and they have maybe an ingredient like fragrance, what does that mean? Because maybe just that one ingredient will shift it from being what we might consider clean as defined by the US Department of Agriculture, right? And if that fragrance happens to have synthetic organics, so it has acrylamides in it that we know are toxicants or carcinogens, then suddenly now that thing is not clean anymore. So I would say that as consumers and then also as manufacturers of these types of products, it's really the impetus is on us to start to look at creating a template in a sense for consumers to understand clean. I would say in addition to that is packaging, things like packaging, because you might have a clean product. But then if it's packaged in maybe a plastic that has that allows for leachates, then your clean product may now have plastic, synthetic chemicals, right, that have leached into your product. So as we think clean, we also have to think about packaging and sourcing integrity.
Oh man, there's so much there for consumers to look out for right now. I think especially in the clean hair space. We will include some resources as you recommend, but I want to take a minute and talk about Nuele. You've co-founded this company, but you didn't just create a company or a product. You have created an ecosystem within your supply chain. And I'm so intrigued by the moringa tree. Can you talk a little bit about this magical moringa tree and how it came to be a part of your work?
Okay, we're excited about moringa.
Me too.
So, I guess I'll preface that by saying that I'm originally from Kenya, in East Africa. And moringa is something that we grew up around, but didn't even realize just how valuable it was. The moringa tree leaves have very high concentrations of proteins in them. And they also have lots of vitamins and minerals. So the moringa leaf has been used to supplement diet, across Africa and actually also Asia for a really long time. And the seeds have been used for oils, for cooking oil, as well as for making facial creams and things such as that. So my co-founder, Anne, and I, as we started to ask the question, how do we bring to market a product that meets people's needs? Because we were looking to provide a product that moisturized hair, that nourished hair, that was really a superfood for hair. And so we started thinking about which superfoods we knew out there that may not necessarily be used in the mainstream in the hair care world. And moringa just popped up for us because we knew what it had. It has the proteins that are so beneficial for hair health. It has the unsaturated fatty acids that are great. And currently there's studies being done to try and connect it to reducing high density lipoproteins, which of course interfere with our cholesterol. We knew that it had vitamins and minerals. And so we asked, okay, if we can bring our product to market using moringa oil as a key ingredient for us, not only will it bring healthy hair care products, but it'll actually support the economic ecosystem, which is so important to us. So many of these farmers, grow this crop and actually didn't even realize to what extent it had value. So to be able to engage with our farmers and see, parents send their kids to school, see parents be able to pay their hospital bill because they're being compensated equitably for the work that they're putting in was something that just we could not look aside from. And I'd say the third reason why we're excited about moringa trees is that they grow very well in arid regions, and they've been used for land reclamation. So they're in many, many parts of Africa and Asia, and I believe now also in Latin America. We've seen significant deforestation, and that has interfered with the environment significantly. So our question became, could we be in a space where we're not in an extractive industry, but actually really be in an environment where, we're obtaining oils and extracts from this tree, but also giving back and strengthening and sustaining the environments from within which we work. So we've really been on this kick, to plant moringa trees.
Yeah.
We don't cut the tree to get our product. So absolutely, we're not deforesting or anything like that, but would love to be able to see some of these ecosystems that have been devastated through oil extractions, for example, in West Africa, or gold mining in Ghana, to repopulate some of those environments with moringa trees, which will, minimize erosion, but also provide a food product, and for us, certainly hair product, and strengthen the economy. So long-winded me of me saying, totally a miracle tree, and we're excited about working with the farmers in this space.
Well, what strikes me as super cool is everything about this tree gives to the people. And the model that you've created is kind of like the moringa, like you're taking from the tree, but you're replanting, and you have this like tree planting program, and you're working with the farmers to create equity. And you're also, it's sustainability, I think, at its best, because you're not just stripping this really incredibly potent ingredient, but you're ensuring that, like, while you use it and your market and need for it grows, other companies now also have access to it because you're replenishing. I just think that's so cool.
It's super awesome. And, in all honesty, and I know that it's challenging in this type of industry where certainly bottom line and things such as that drive decision making. But, and it may come across as cliche, but both Anne and I are huge on health, and huge on equity, and huge on giving back, because we feel that if we're going to be in an industry where we continuously extract, then from a long-term sustainability perspective, we're also going to be looking at our sunset very quickly. So the question becomes, how do we nurture human health, hair health, human health, and then environmental health? And if we can create an ecosystem where there's some level of balance, and support our other partners who are in this industry to identify healthy options, then ultimately we will be in a place where, I don't have to go for a hair show and have to go to the bathroom because somebody is crying about their hair and they're sitting under a wig. There are moments when I have been bawling at a hair show because someone is so devastated by what has happened to their hair. If we can all be in a space, and I know it sounds very utopian, but if we can all be in a place where we have options, there's so much creativity out there. I'm not saying that Nuele has the answer to everything. There's so many other companies that have very many creative scientists that could take moringa oil and take it to a whole other universe and do phenomenal things with it. Kudos to you. That would be awesome. But if we can create a sustainable supply chain, then that would be even better. So partnering with True Moringa has been phenomenal for us, and I hope that other companies identify this as a wonder oil.
Well, you're definitely setting a great example for, independent beauty brands to really think about the health of their consumers, the health of their supply chain. And that's how you create like a sustainable business that can go like the 10, 20-year mark. And you're doing all that and giving curly girls options. So we can just switch back and forth with the same product.
But Anne would say manageability, manageability, manageability. She likes to be able to have curly hair in the morning and straight hair in the evening, but doesn't want to compromise and say, okay, I'm just going to, perm my hair. And again, I'm not trying to take away from anybody who wants to perm their hair. Certainly, all we're looking at is options, for that person who wants that option, that they have it in a healthy way.
Yeah, well, I'm all about options, and I'm all about healthy options, which leads me to my last question. So important. What does a clean scalp regimen look like to detoxify this like super important part?
Okay.
Tell us, what do we do?
What do you do? So a couple of things. I would say, first and foremost, look at your water intake. How much water are you consuming? Remember I said our scalp has a lot of sebaceous glands, which means we sweat a lot, right? If we don't have sufficient water to help with the sweating, and so therefore the flushing of our sebaceous glands, we're going to start to have a bioaccumulation of toxicants in our sebaceous glands. That's step number one, consuming enough water. Second thing is exercising. And for that, because if you're not exercising, you're not sweating, so you're not detoxing your scalp, which means even if you scrub the surface of your scalp a lot, you're actually not getting into the scalp, right? And getting rid of the toxins. So we want to be able to pull up those toxins out of the scalp and onto the surface of our hair, right? So therefore, once we get to that point, the question becomes, how do you get rid of it from now the top of your scalp, right? If you look at this, the skin layer. Couple of things. Certainly, you want to use a cleanser. I would say whichever cleanser you select, try to remove or at least minimize significantly the use of things like sulfates that completely strip your hair cuticle, because you don't want your hair cuticle to be stripped as you're trying to detox your scalp. Okay. Now, many times we wash our hair, but we forget to wash our scalp. So we'll put shampoo in our hair and we'll rub, 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 but we don't put it on the scalp and then rub, 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 right? So you want to make sure that you actually wash your scalp, not just your hair. Ideally, at least once a week. However, if a person has a hair type where it tends to get really oily, then you certainly want to wash, more often in terms of with a cleanser of some sort. And the reason I say cleanser versus shampoo is because shampoos tend to have foaming agents in them. So those will be your sulfates and so on. And cocoa diethanolamine, which we know is a problem. It's carcinogenic. So if you can shift away from foaming cleansers to cleansers that don't foam, and then wash your scalp and really abrase it, rub it, right? Exfoliate it. Because like I said earlier on when we started, we have new cells forming all the time on our scalp. So we have old cells that sit on our scalp. And if we don't rub those off, then they start to accumulate and form dandruff. And the other thing that will happen is if they accumulate to that level, then we start getting bacterial growth in there, which will cause irritation and so on. So part of detoxing, other than what we consume in terms of drinking water and exercising, and really doing um, scalp a scalp scrub, is to also use essential oils to treat the scalp. Because remember, toxins can sit inside our skin, our scalp, or they can sit on top. So if we have essential oils that we put on our scalp and then rub them in, and a lot of the time, people go for hot oil treatments and things like that. Part of the reason a hot oil treatment is such a great thing is that you're sitting under a hot dryer with oil on there. So it opens up your pores, allows for the toxins to come into that hot oil, and then you wash it off. So part of how you detox your scalp is to also do things like hot oil treatments.
What
And
kind of essential oils would you recommend?
so I mean, there's a broad range. You can have blends of things like frankincense, rosemary, a little bit of clary sage. You might want to be careful with things like clove oils that can be skin irritants.
Okay.
Blending those oils with an olive oil, for example, or even blending it with a fresh avocado, you know, would be phenomenal. And you don't have to sit under a hot dryer. You can actually just put it on and then put on a plastic cap and let that sit for a while.
Because
So
that generates heat.
because it generates heat. So that would be, an oil-based detox regimen. You can also have a water-based detox as a regimen. And that would be to use things such as aloe. Just get fresh aloe, take off the green hard part, and rub the gel onto your scalp. Cover that with, again, a hair, what's it called?
Shower cap.
Shower cap. Cover that with a shower cap, and then let that also not only moisturize your scalp and soften the scalp, so that the dead cells can lift off, but also remove any water-based toxicants that might be sitting on your scalp.
And how long do you let it sit for?
It varies. If you feel like if you use a lot of product for your hair, different types of products, then certainly you want to keep it on there for 30 to 45 minutes. Some people stay an hour. You in most instances, I would say more than an hour is probably overkill. But but you can certainly stay longer with that. Now, the one thing I did want to mention is that when you detox, you many times we hear stories about just doing a cold wash. Okay, if you're using oil-based detox, then you certainly want to wash with warm water, because if you wash with cold, then some of those fatty substances that came from the sebum will just solidify back on the hair. It's not going to go away. So you definitely want to do a warm rinse after you've detoxed your scalp. After you've rinsed off everything, rinsed off the oils, and then not to be hot, but at least warm, then you can come back and close the pores with the cold water. Okay. But doing just a cold wash actually doesn't remove all of the sebum. And the problem with sebum is if it stays on there, then it's going to go back into the hair follicle and start to clog the hair follicles. So one of the ways in which you can know that you need a scalp scrub or a detox is beginning to see a lot of irritation, maybe a lot of dandruff, maybe getting moles on the scalp. If that's beginning to happen, then you know it's time. The other thing we can do if we don't want to get too regimented is that when we wash our hair, again, to just maybe rub the scalp and massage it. That really helps with blood flow, because remember I said there are a lot of capillaries in there. So it helps with blood flow, and that increase in blood flow also helps with the removal of toxins, because it stimulates the follicles and the sebum to push liquid out.
That's amazing. I'm so excited to try that, try more of it. I think that, with all the salons and everything being closed right now, it's really hard to, we have this expectation that other people are going to take care of us. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to create this series, to give people tools, options, and just the knowledge base to be able to do something like that at home. I never would have thought, you blend some essential oils with an olive oil, like a carrier oil, or even avocado, where, I am.
Amazing. Even avocado alone, to be honest with you, because it has a lot of natural oils in there. It has vitamins, minerals, it moisturizes the hair, but it also, and I'm not sure honestly what the chemical compound is, but it really helps soften the scalp. So if you have like dandruff and stuff, it'll help soften that layer. And then you just wash it off with warm water and kind of like rub it off with warm water. And it in a sense, conditions the scalp along with the hair. So it's a phenomenal ingredient.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Christine, for being with us today. And can you just show everyone a bottle of Nuele?
Sure.
Because guys, we're going to be giving one of these away. So stay tuned for details. And you can use this on your scalp, in your hair. It's just a beautiful oil.
Absolutely. It's got only 5 ingredients in it. We're big on being minimalists.
Yes.
But providing value. And you can use it on your hair, you can use it on your scalp, you can use it on your face. I actually use it on my face.
I've really gotten into oils on my face at night, and I love the results.
You know what's cool about it is that it completely gets absorbed into your skin. Many times people worry about things like oils, like, oh my goodness, it's going to make me feel oily. But one of the cool things about moringa, and it's because it's got a blend of proteins in it as well, is it actually absorbs very well into the skin. So it doesn't leave that oily feeling, and same thing on the hair. So I certainly would encourage people to try it. And I love your curls, and it works both for curly and straight. It really does. It's quite versatile.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And we will include Dr. Martey-Ochola's Martey-Ochola's links, as well as a link to Nuele, so that you guys can stay connected with this beautiful brand that is doing such amazing full circle work. I'm so honored to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. I appreciate what you're doing. This Natural Beauty Summit, I think, is really going to transform how we approach our health both from a skincare, from oral care, as well as from a hair care perspective. And I think that it's a dialogue that needs to continue, so that we can, as we said, collectively look at how we can improve this market. I think the industry, the beauty industry, is one that is integral to, I would say, our mental health. If you wake up in the morning and feel great, chances are you're going to do great, right? So I think it's a very important industry that needs continued nurture. And I see this beauty summit, especially from a natural perspective, as bringing in that layer or that vision, because many times people have thought, if I'm kind of going it with a natural product, maybe I'm not going to look as great as I thought I did when I wasn't using natural, right? So we're just asking, like, how do we make natural sexy again? How do we make it such that we can still look amazing, feel amazing, not compromise our long-term health, and use products that are really additive rather than that subtract years on the back end of our.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well,
And
thank you for
that's a
being with
pleasure
us.
having a conversation with you.
Likewise, it's been such a pleasure. And Christine, that's been our vision, is to create a platform. A lot of this change is happening right now with health, beauty, skincare, cosmetics, hair care. And we want to be here for it. We want to educate the people, because my journey, not having had a science background like yourself, was a lot of learning and a lot of shocks along the way as we were doing our product development. So I don't want people to get shocked. We want to make it readily available. Thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.